iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.
Flying over sunset, crossing Hollywood and Vine. Flying over sunset, past the Hollywood landside. Riding with the top down, I hold the tiny young man. I could have had my choice of any then. And I'm flying over sunset, young again. Where are we? What time is this?
Gerald Hurd was a real man. He was born in 1889, died around 1971. He was a philosopher, and he was an author, prolific. He was a lecturer, and he also was a person who thought that LSD, the drug LSD, was something that could lead people to a higher state of consciousness. Not something that was recreational or fun or silly, but in actual fact, something that was deeply spiritual. And he was a very spiritual man, wrote many books about God, about Jesus. He knew very much about the Bible. He was a scholar. And he happened to be very close friends with some very famous people like Aldous Huxley and Christopher Isherwood. And he and Huxley's wife Maria and their young son Matthew all came to America in the late 30s and just stayed and got to California, where Gerald Hurd was also a founder of the Vedanta Center, which was an Indian philosophy yoga sort of center. And he was an amazing, intelligent guy, so it's fun to try to figure him out.
My character is a woman called Claire Booth Luce, and she's a woman of many talents and skills. She was an ambassador for Italy and then Brazil for 3 days, and then she decided, I don't want to do that anymore. But how cool is that, to just go that far to become an ambassador to something and then just say, no, I'm good. See ya. Just an editor of magazines. She was also a writer, playwright of some incredibly successful plays on Broadway. And she was a mother for a short amount of time. But to be all of these things in the 1950s, that was quite mind-blowing for me. And then I started reading some of her books, and I don't know how she did it all. I don't know how she found the time to do everything that she did. But she did, as well as decided that she was going to try some acid. She was at a crossroads in her life, and she just needed she thought maybe it would give her some clarity.
Well, when I first got this offer and I saw Roll Cary Grant, I thought, you're kidding me, right? That's a lot of pressure. But then I realized he didn't want a replica. He wanted me to take his life and put it into mine. And so I felt a lot of freedom with that. But at the same time, I saw the names attached, like James Lapine, and I'd always wanted to work with Michelle Dorrance, Tom Kitt, Michael Korie. And I think it was the first rehearsal that I came into last year where I realized, okay, this is something special because they wrote the story and the music. It converges, like it makes you feel something greater than you thought you would feel. And I'm a critical kind of person in my art form. I've sort of been around enough to know what I like, what I don't like, and it just really surprised me. But as far as playing the role goes, it's a tight line between making sure you pay homage to Cary Grant and who he was, but at the same time, fictionalizing something so we can inherently affect an audience in a greater way.
It deals with sort of the innermost parts of the psyche that we're all afraid to confront, but the drug that these three leading players are dealing with brings it out, and they have to confront it head on in song, on stage. And so I just think, particularly because they're three such interesting, distinct individuals, and they're going through very difficult parts in their life. One of them has lost a loved one. One of them is dealing with leaving the business that the profession he's chosen. I just think there's so much for an audience member to latch on to in every single character. And then when they all come together, it's just this fantastical moment where our imagination gets to run free and go on this trip with them.
Through a transcendental portal, where a moment feels immortal.
Sunset, flying over sunset, flying over sunset.
Flying Over Sunset is going to be a surprise, like a trip. You know, emotions will go up and down and over and out, and it won't fit into the easy musical format that you're expecting. It's going to jar a little. It's going to surprise people in good ways and make them think.
The musical has a huge emotional content to it. The usage of LSD and people, these characters being in this state, it brings out, I think certain things in their life that they have been thinking about, haven't dealt with. They're all at a crossroads in their life. So I think it's going to be an emotional experience. And then when you take this drug and make it a part of the storytelling, I think you're also going to see the unexpected in terms of musical form, in terms of design. So I think it's going to be a very exciting experience.
When I found out who was playing alongside of me, I was very, very excited to if anyone ever gets to see Tony Yazbeck dance, they have to buy that ticket.
I think that is one thing that is not talked about enough in dance, and it is particularly enough in theater, that everything is a collaboration. You expect so much, a director expects so much from the actors. A choreographer always expects so much from dancers, and personal interpretation is very important. Of course, your vision is important, and the nuance and the idiosyncrasies are important, but also for someone to embody something honestly, they're a collaborator in the work. So no one talks enough about the collaboration that happens with an associate. And the reason I chose Melinda, in part, is because I actually have to leave the process a handful of times to go be with my company on tour. So I needed someone who is a leader herself to be my collaborator and my associate, and that is Melinda Sullivan. And we thanks. But it's true.
An exceptional heroine, bravery personified.
Yeah, I think everybody goes through stages like this, whether you take LSD or you take Wellbutrin or whatever, or Prozac, whatever you take. This show is about people who are kind of locked in patterns, and they get a chance to fly and see their life from a broader perspective. And I think, and then come back to Earth and realize what's good about their life.
This first act, we separately show how these historic characters experimented for the first time. And in the second act, we fictionally come together and experiment together. And I think that's what's beautiful about this show, is it shows that being together and seeing each other, really seeing who we are, is the most important part of our existence.
I think what was so exciting is that we still don't quite, we have a good idea of what it's going to be, but it's still changing every day. And I don't think a lot of shows like that exist anymore on Broadway, and I've certainly never been a part of one. I've always been a part of things that are revivals or have a source material, so we know what the end goal is. And James works in such a thoughtful, measured way that he sort of said on our first day, we are not quite sure how this is going to turn out, but we hope you're all along for the ride. And I just thought it's very singular to get to experience something like that at this level, on Broadway, at the Vivian Beaumont, at Lincoln Center, with this creative team. So I just thought, I don't know if this is ever going to happen again. I just want to be in the room for this process.
I would describe it as fully alive and new and challenging. And if you will come and just lean into it, I think the rewards will be significant. I think it's beautiful. I think it's witty. I think it's sexy. I think it's interesting. I think it's strange. I think it goes places you don't know it's going to go. And I think if you can open your heart, as the creators have done so beautifully, to give it to you, you're going to want to see it again and again. I really mean that. I think it's going to be exquisite.
iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.